Welcome to another episode of ActivateenCC, where we cross the chasm with community chats.
Hi, welcome everyone. And I'm just so delighted that I have a really dear friend of mine, Kathleen Zuelch, who is joining us. She's right now in California. And we actually met in Austin, and we've been friends since then. And interestingly, we've been talking about Generation Z for what, Kathy, 4 years
Yeah,
now?
4 years. Yep, definitely.
Yes. And we, you know, sometimes it's all about timing, isn't it? When the time is right, everything happens. So we're just so delighted to have Kathy. I call her Kathy, but she's Kathleen. And it's wonderful to have you here, Kathleen. Um, Kathleen was born and raised in Southern California. She studied speech and communications in California State University, and the entertainment industry was always her primary interest. I would love for you, Kathy, to tell us a bit more about yourself and your wonderful adventures in the film industry and in the animation industry.
Well, first, I want to thank you guys for having me. I love this. I'm so happy that you have this up and running. It's a great organization, and I watch you guys on Instagram, and so I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. I started back in, it's been about 25 years, which I can't believe. And I was working for a recording studio originally, and they did animation recordings. And so I had access to all these different studios at the time. They would come in, and I get to meet all the people. And I was offered the opportunity to work for Warner Brothers Feature Animation when they were just kind of starting. They had just done Space Jam, and they were working on a movie called Quest for Camelot. And I started with them, and I was working on as a PA, and that's your entry-level job, production assistant. And in the 5 years that I worked at Warner Brothers, I was able to work on Iron Giant, Osmosis Jones, and then I moved up to visual effects and was working on Scooby-Doo, the first live action. And I was asked to create the visual effects pipeline for them. And I did that, and we won some of the shots. We had the demon character or the monster character, and also Scrappy Rex. So Warner Brothers was really the place where I learned animation from A to Z. And in feature, we do everything. Nothing's outsourced. So the stories, that would take a whole nother podcast, but that was basically my foundation and how I understood and how I learned everything about animation.
Thank you, Kathy. I remember when I told my daughters, when the first time you came home, and I told them, guess who's coming for dinner? And they were like, oh my God, Iron Giant, Scooby-Doo. And of course, we also spoke about red versus blue. Can you tell us about that and how that came to be?
Definitely. So when I was working on Scooby-Doo, I hired a young man named Matt Hullum. And in the 2 years we worked on Scooby-Doo, and then I brought him on Clifford, the big red dog feature. And he came to me one day and he told me that he and his buddies were making this show, and it was online, and he showed it to me. It's called Red versus Blue, and it was using the game Halo. And I knew Halo because of my son, Tyler. He played on Xbox. And so I watched the show and I said, hey, this is really funny, but you guys need a tough chick, and I want to do the voice. And he's like, really? You want to do a voice? I'm like, yeah, why not? Who doesn't want to be like a superhero person? So I did a little interview at audition with Bernie. Bernie was the one who wrote it. And he's like, yeah, you got it. You're the character Tex. Well, I had no idea that like all of our lives were going to change once we created this show. And so Red versus Blue, we had our own website and we streamed it. This was way before YouTube. This is way before, there was Facebook. We had profiles, and the kids could make their own profiles. And it became an international success. And we traveled all over the world for it. I'm so fortunate with the experiences that I had working on that show and voicing that character, and being able to touch so many young people's lives on the internet and try to be a positive force for them. And then I did move to Texas and produce season 10. And then I brought up another show, Ruby, produced that first season or first 2 seasons, and then some of their live action. So that studio went from very small, or it wasn't even a studio, it was just a bunch of friends making something, to now, I mean, it's huge. And I think that there probably, thousands of people that worked there, I'm not sure, but it got really big. But it's a great kind of a highlight in my career.
So you actually have this amazing ability to start, make these dreams happen, right? You know how to start from scratch. Yeah. So tell us about that, because when it's a whole different challenge when you're starting something completely ground up, right?
It really is. So, a lot of the shows that I've worked on, quite a few had nothing, and I've actually been approached from, a startup studio, and they're like, okay, we don't have anything. My whole thing is I need to understand the technology part of it. I need to understand what each of the people's position within that technology is going to be bringing to the table. And the thing about technology is anything can be done. Anything can be created. You got to take a plug in here or a workaround there. And so creating these animation pipelines using Maya or we used Poser, which is a really antiquated animated software for some of the stuff at Rooster Teeth. But, it's just kind of like bringing in the right people and understanding the different pieces of the puzzles to make it run smoothly. And then also kind of looking down the road and saying, okay, where's the pitfalls? Where can things go wrong, so that we're already kind of, okay, proactive. This is the route we're going to take if we go down that road. So it was that's the highlight. I love researching. I love researching out technology, and I like finding the best people to do the right positions for those jobs. So it's kind of, it's a global way of thinking. You really have to look at the big picture and not just, one piece of it.
Santiago, you had a question, I know, because we have 2 young filmmakers on this listening in, and I'd love to hear from both of you.
Yeah, when you talked about like Scooby-Doo the live action, is that the Spooky Island one?
Yeah, yes.
People don't believe me when I say that's one of my favorite movies.
I love hearing that.
Good, and it's so well made. And it's funny because when you go to film school, people try to be like very, I don't know, they're trying to be like fancy. They're trying to be like in the same movies like Tarantino and Pulp Fiction and stuff like that. And I would legit just say that my favorite movie is Scooby-Doo. And everyone would laugh, and it's so good. And I still watch it to this day. That one and the second one, they're so good.
It was really interesting to work on. The live action's done first, and then there was probably 4 different studios that do the animation. So Rhythm and Hughes did Scooby. We did the 2 characters, then the ghosts were made by somebody else. And the interesting thing about it is you would look at a shot, and basically they would say, okay, what's the parent in this shot? What's the hero character? And so that studio would start on that shot first. And then they would give the shot to the next studio, and then we would put our characters in, and they would play against Scooby-Doo. But to see the raw footage where the demon character, they had made this like 6-foot tall crane, and the guy would hold it, and so that the actors could act to something that wasn't there, they put this pretend, monster character there. And the funny behind the scenes thing, it was called the Demon, and all of the characters, Freddie and all of the characters in the dialogue, they referenced it as a demon. But when they played it for the audiences, the parents were like, we don't want to have our children see demons, so they had to change it to monster. And so they had to do ADR, go back in and have the people say monster instead of demon. So there was a lot of things that they had to fix on that film, which I always love the behind the scenes stuff.
How long did it take, Kathy?
It was about 1.5 years that we worked on that. Yeah. So we started with the monster character, and then the Scrappy Rex character came about, and we bid on all the shots, and we were awarded them, which is really exciting. And it's funny, when I was working on that, I got to meet Iwo Takamoto. He was actually the creator of Scooby-Doo. And he was probably 80, and he was still coming into Warner Brothers. And I would hang out, we'd have lunch. And I asked him, I said, how did you come up with the character? And he said he worked with a woman who was ink and paint, old fashioned, when they actually ink and painted stuff. And she was a Great Dane breeder. And so he said, well, what are all the attributes to a Great Dane? Oh, strong jaw, and the paws forward and a straight back. And he said, I took all of those attributes and I just did the opposite. And you can see that if you look at Scooby-Doo, he's kind of just this dopey character. And so the other thing about Scrappy-Doo, because I know when I was growing up, Scrappy-Doo is kind of like a character. And I said, well, why did you guys come up with him? And he said, well, they were going to have to lay people off. And so Hanna-Barbera, so Joe and Bill came to him and said, look, let's have some more ideas. Let's make a cousin. Let's make more episodes to keep these people employed. And then I was like, okay, I love Scooby-Doo or Scrappy-Doo now because, you know, they kept people employed. But it was pretty charming to be able to hang out with him.
Tell us a little bit more about voice acting. You know, how did you, Scooby has such a distinctive voice, right?
Completely, yes. And there's been a couple different actors, the voiceover actors throughout the years that have done him. Frank Welker, I feel like it was, no, he didn't. Frank Welker does it a lot of the time. It was an Australian actor who did the voiceover for Scooby-Doo. And, you know, a lot of people ask me about how to get into it. And I'm like, watch your favorite shows, watch your cartoons, practice these voices, practice being able to change your pitch and change your style and sound like a kid. And then just do, in this day and age with technology, do your own CD, or not, it's not even CD anymore, you know, do your own reel, do your own audio track so that you can share that to voice, you know, directors or studios or do things for free for your friends, you know, and just to kind of get yourself out there.
Wow, that's so cool. This is information that I'm sure a lot of people would like to know, especially students, because we really don't even think of voice acting, right?
Right.
And many students are good at mimicking, and it's a natural talent, but you don't know that this could be another side hustle.
Oh, completely.
Yeah.
And you know, you could take your newspaper, and I say that, who gets newspapers anymore, but you can get news and just read it as copy and do a commercial, or get a commercial and zero out the audio and put your own in, and there's your showpiece. So there's a lot that you can do on your own.
Well, Kathy, I know you're one of the most creative people I've met, right? And is that the Iron Giant behind you?
It is. So it's one of my favorite scenes, and I make the art with bottle caps, ironically. So all of those are I hand smash them, and then I cut into like a mosaic, basically. So I draw it first.
That is amazing. Did you see Santiago's face?
That's insane. Yeah. That's so cool.
Here, let me just show you. The butterfly is pretty intricate.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's 2 hand surgeries later, but I've learned how to finally figured out how to do it without hurting myself. But I love doing this artwork, and it's kind of one of my things that gives me a little bit of a zen, you know.
So. It is. So are you still doing it? I know that I saw a couple of pieces when you were in Austin. Are you still doing it?
Yeah, I was commissioned to do a Fender guitar. And so I'm 3/4 of the way finished with that. And it's really pretty cool. I'm pretty excited about it. So it's just now that I'm on a show and I'm working, I don't have as much free time to do that. And it takes hours to flatten, hours and hours.
Your nails, right? So I have a question from Sarah. She says, considering challenges like ADR for live action shoots, do you consider fully animated projects or easier? What are some of the challenges you face there?
You know, I worked on both. And I worked with Jason Reitman on his film. It was out of Austin. It's called Men, Women, and Children. And I really enjoyed it. The hard part about live action is you're under the gun every day. Time is money. They have a set amount, you know, and if you run over and it has to go into the next day, you're working with the elements, you're working with the environments, you're working with people and their health. And if somebody breaks something that's a major player, you know, and then look at COVID, they had to shut everything down. Animation, you kind of create a family because you're going to be with these people for 2.5 years. And so you bring people in, you're working it's a marathon. It's not a sprint. So even though you have daily quotas and daily, timeframes and milestones that you have to hit, it's spread out in such a long term. So sometimes though, you might say, oh my gosh, it's 2 years of stress. A little bit, but it's kind of a stress you learn to kind of go with. And when you have a team, I'm currently on an amazing team that just jives together and everybody's working for that common milestone. And there's not as many egos, and I'll be very transparent. I'll say that because in live action, I found that there was definitely that hierarchy and there's kind of some egos in that. And I wasn't really a fan of that because I like to treat everybody with respect and with compassion, empathy. And so, I don't really call out, oh, you're more special than that person. It doesn't work. So animation really has a really, like I said, like a real family vibe. And that's kind of and that's really, when I'm producing, that's kind of the element I bring to the table, because that's how I treat people. And then all of a sudden everybody's feeling that.
I have a question about, it's something that I've always thought in like animation, because I don't know much about it. So you mentioned that you were in charge of like a specific like monster or whatever, like Scooby-Doo or whatever, and then like another studio was in charge of something else. How do you set like a foundation on how each studio is going to make the animation for it to look cohesive? Like how do you, and for example, if there's like a lot of animators doing something, how do they agree on doing something in the same style that looks like it's from the same story?
That's a fabulous question. And I'm going to share. So when I worked on Curious George, we had about 7 different countries and studios in those 7 countries working on that movie. So in animation, it's kind of twofold. There are character designs and specs that go out with each character and that the animator would have to draw to, or they would have to build to. So when we were on Scooby-Doo, there was technical specifications on how the shots had to be created so that when it was sent to each of the different studios, they were able to ingest it, be able to open it up, work in it. So one studio couldn't work in Maya and another studio work in some other type of, animation software. Now, a lot of times though, they had proprietary software. So as long as they could export in a way that we could work in it. So it's all about, technology, talking with technology. Mm-hmm. But the other thing that you're saying, when it comes to animation, I'm working on a 3D show. So when we have a character, our character is going to be, we sculpt it first in what's called Blender. It's a software. And so we sculpt it in exactly how we want it to look, so that when we send it to our outsourced studio, who's actually going to model it, they basically have all the topology to make it look exactly the way we want it to look. So a lot of it is technology. And like I said, those specifications are written out and it makes it really clear so that a studio knows that we're talking the same language.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
You're muted, Shaku.
Sorry.
There you go.
My dog was barking, so I'm muted. So Kathy, your role is, kind of like herding cats to bring everyone together, make sure they're on task. Tell us a little bit about that and what you're, I know that you're at Netflix now.
I am. And I have to say they're an amazing company. They're really lovely to work for. So I'm on an animated series. They haven't announced it yet, so I can't say the name, but as soon as they do, I'll share that. It's an action comedy. It's really going to be fabulous. The look of it's really lovely. So I'm producing it. So basically it's, I work with the studio to have the budget and then create the schedule. And the schedule means, hiring. And we're doing everything from basically we start with script and we go through what's called an animatic. So it's scripted and we do all the designs here. Then we go into storyboard. And then from storyboard, that goes into the animatics created. We do the voiceover over here. And then we send everything to our vendor, who they're in France and they're amazing. And they're kind of our partners, like an extension of, of us. And so we're working together. Now we get up early in the morning, like this morning, I was up talking with France before you guys, and also Germany. So it's like, we're, it's all doable from home. That's the beauty about animation too. We have been able to do that. We started this show in January, and then 2 months later, boom, we were working from home. So I would say 80% of my crew that I've hired, I have not even met in person yet. It's through, we work with Zoom and Google Hangouts. So, but it truly is, I'm constantly looking over the schedules. Where are we this week? What are our milestones? Making sure everybody knows what those milestones are. And also allowing everybody to do their job. I'm not a micromanager. It's like, I hired you for a position. This is your baby. You go, and if you have questions, you come back. And that's really, I think, what makes a really good leader is to know when to let go and let people do what they've been hired to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So talking about COVID, right? I was reading that during the lockdown, that a lot of the funded projects were being executed, and the animation industry was not as badly affected as many of the other industries. So what was your experience?
I will say the first month that we were working from home, I was extremely stressed out. Because I'm thinking, I've never done this. How do I run a show from home? But I will say, this is where Netflix came in. They deployed everybody's, I have a stand-up desk, I have my computer, they got everything to everybody. It was an amazing logistic. I'm just amazed by what they did. Technology-wise, VPN, so people can, get into the servers and things like that. So it was tough, but now it's going to be hard to that when we do go back, and we don't know when that's going to be. We know it's not for the rest of this year. People figured out, we were like, hey, it's all digital. And if you can do it, we have a person working in Nigeria, Ghana, and Hawaii, and Paraguay.
And you also in Guyana, right?
Yeah. So the nice thing about it is it's opened up the world to us as far as talent goes. And for our particular show, that's been extremely beneficial. But it's also showed, I think, the higher ups that this is a pipeline that can be done from home and efficiently done from home. Things take a little longer. Technology, sometimes isn't our friend, and getting approvals and things like that. But if you build that into your schedule, and we know that now, it can be done. And my dogs are at day camp because I didn't want them barking through this. But usually, they're here. I can get up and go out and garden for a couple minutes. Like, there's really good moments about it. So,
yeah. So, what next, Kathy? What are your plans for?
I'll be on this show through 2022. And we've got a long haul. That's why I say it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I'm really, really excited about that. I did finish a children's book, and it did get illustrated, and it's sitting, and I need to get that up and out onto like Amazon. But I feel like I want to tap into a lot more of the creative side, and maybe move towards like a creative producer, or creating my own content, or pitching to Netflix my own content. Because I think that there's just a lot more that I'd like to do. And so, and I think this might be a great arena for me to be able to, to tap into that.
That's wonderful. So I know that you're also highly, you love your fans. You have a great fan base, and you've been a positive role model, right? Can you tell us about the Good Deed program?
Oh, I'd love to. It's my favorite. When Rooster Teeth, when we had our website and everybody had their own profile, there was 10 of us basically on staff, and they had set up these awards, these virtual awards that the fans could get from each of us, each of the characters in the show. And so Tex had these fun lips, like a kiss or something like that. And the kids, this was back in 2005, I think. And the kids would all ask me, how do I get your award? And I thought about it for a long time and thinking, okay, I want to do something that has some meaning. And I said, all right, here's how you get it. I want you to go out in the real world, not the internet, and do a good deed, an act of kindness for someone, and then come back and tell me. And some kids would be like, well, that's not a good deed if I tell you. And I said, look, you're only going to tell me, you're not going to share, with the world. And so, yeah, I have thousands and thousands of these from all over the world. I mean, I have, the military, we have so many military fans, and they had the most incredible stories of what they would do with these kids, over in Afghanistan, and like they would give them the baseballs or the basketballs, they'd have them shipped over and the kids would play with them. And it just like really, really amazing stories. But then what I really liked was the fact that these kids were actually thinking about it now. It wasn't, it was like, oh wait, how can I be kind? And so I love that. And I really would love to expand on that. It's one of those things where I say, okay, I want to do more with that and bring it to schools, or, because I think in this time, we all need a little act of kindness,
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, I have like a couple questions. First, what are you working like currently? And also I wanted to ask you, because you mentioned it before, sorry, the voiceovers. When you animate something, do you animate the character doing the movements and then you put the voice on top of it, or do you record the voice and then make the character imitate the voice?
So in real animation, well, both in Machinima too, like Red versus Blue, you record the voice first.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take that recording and you know what a storyboard is? So if you have, so you take that and you take the storyboards, you put it into Premiere Avid, and you put that voiceover for timing. So now you basically have a short, moving animatic, so storyboard. And then that is it's timed and the scenes are cut. And then that's what is then shipped to the outsourced studio, or sometimes it's animated in the States. And that's how they know how to animate, the mouth movements and everything like that, because you have it first. And when we did Machinima, like Red versus Blue, we would record the voice, and then we would set up 4 Xboxes, and one would be basically the camera, and the other 3 would be the characters, and we would do the audio, and then the guys who are really good at the game would do all the acting real time with with like Master Chief characters. So, yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, what kind of advice would you give to anyone, any teenager, young adult who's really interested in animation and wants to get started?
First and foremost, I would say research the job that you want. Figure out if it's a production side, meaning are you going to be handling, like myself, be a production assistant, a production manager, or producer, right? What do those jobs look like? Or do you want to be on the creative side, like the animation, storyboard, character design, visual development, like all these different types of jobs? Research what they are. Go on Instagram, find people who do those jobs, or look at your local like public college and find workshops and immerse yourself in that and ask them questions, and go on Google and find YouTube channels. How do I storyboard? How do I animate? I am not going to say don't go to college, but I'm going to say don't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on that type of education. You can do this all yourself. You can learn this, and you can go to workshops, and like I said, Instagram, you can find these resources. That's one thing. 2, I would say then practice. Whatever that craft is, you want to practice it. Your friend says, oh my gosh, we want to do this animation for blah, blah, blah. Well, do it for them for free. Find companies, graphic artists, everybody needs something drawn in business. Everything is drawn, right? And so immerse yourself again, get out there. I'll do this for free, whatever you need to get that experience. And then 3, I know this is going to sound crazy, but learn, I feel like young people, and this is so different, but learn about business and learn about budgets, like your finances. Because as you get into an industry where you can make some decent money, or any industry, whatever you're making, we all need to know how to manage our finances, Because in our industry, sometimes there's times where you're not going to be working because your gig's finished, right? You want to know how are you going to save your money and be able to get through those rough patches. So business, again, I say business classes because you might be negotiating your own terms and you want to understand what those terms are. It's not just, take a salary. It's like, okay, you might be making money per background that you make and how much time is it going to take? So it's kind of like become well-rounded as well as your creative side, understand finance and business.
And now we are seeing that animators are not necessarily just in the entertainment business. We're seeing more animators join other industries as well, right? Because they are part of the communication flow of narrating a story and the other question I have for you, Kathy, is I don't think you touched upon this. You still have the two-dimensional animation, the 2D animation, and you have the 3D animation. So is 2D animation dead now, or is there still a market for that?
I think there's still a market. And I've always said to young people that to learn traditional animation is very important because you learn you learn how to time, you learn how to, pace, and then you can carry that over into the 3D softwares. When I've worked with a lot of different character animators, I could always tell in 3D, I could always tell the ones that started with a traditional background because they just had a little bit better nuance. And it's not always the case, but a lot of times. So as long as you understand the structure of traditional animation and then you want to go into the CG or Maya, that's great. But again, I think it's being well-rounded. There's stop motion animation, one of my favorites. And I think that's having a little bit of a resurgence. What I'm seeing at Netflix is across the board, there's what's called harmony. So Toon Boom, harmony, and it's still kind of a hand-drawn animation. It's still like a 2D animation done in a software, right? And so it's not paper per se, but I would say be well-rounded with it all. But I guess right now the trend is the CG, which we see in a lot of major studios.
Yeah. Any questions, Santiago?
No, not a question. I just wanted to say that I think it's pretty cool to have a career like yours because we were all raised on animated stuff and animated stories, and I think it's really interesting how since if you have like a background in like filmmaking or you've learned something about it, and you already imagine like the behind the scenes and how everything is created. But if you don't, you just get to immerse yourself in the fantasy and just enjoy it. And it's funny because literally last week, there was a video going around on Twitter on that airport scene on Scooby-Doo where Scooby's like dressed as a grandma. And then it was like a behind the scenes where the person was like wearing the green mask.
Yes.
And people saying stuff like, oh my God, my childhood was ruined. And I was like, that's not a real dog, but it's so cool that you thought that it was.
Well, can I tell you a funny thing? So when I was working on Scooby-Doo, PETA actually called me and asked if the dog was being handled, kindly. And I'm like, did you know that Scooby's a cartoon? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not a real dog.
Yeah, so that people can actually believe it and just enjoy it.
Yes.
Pretty cool.
Okay, I have something really fun and not at all part of what was planned, but can you do one of your characters that you did as a voice actor?
Oh my gosh. Tex always curse. So let's see, what could I say? Buenos dias, boys. I'm back. She just sounds like me, just a little lower, just a little more, I'm going to kick your butt.
I love you. You are so cool.
Oh,
you really are one of my coolest friends.
Oh, thank you. So are you. I miss you. I sure appreciate y'all.
And so you and I and Activateen and with Sarah and Santiago, we're going to do an animation workshop, right? On December 5th.
Fantastic.
And I'm so happy about that because I know that Kathy, you're also passionate about teaching, right?
Yes, yes,
You've
yeah.
done workshops. Can you just tell us about that a little bit?
I've done a lot of presentations to high schools and junior highs on producing and kind of taking them through what the production side of things are. I haven't done well, and then I show them. I'll take them. I've been presented with some of the shows that I've worked on where I've been able to show them kind of the rough animation. It goes into cleanup, and then what the final product is. And I think that's really helpful, and it's fun for people to see it because they have no idea how much time goes into creating a cartoon. When you tell somebody, oh, it's 2.5 years, they're like, but it's a cartoon. It's like, well, here's why, and especially when it was hand drawn, you had rough, thousands of drawings, clean up over those, thousands of drawings. I mean, 3 seconds of animation sometimes would take a week in feature, and when I worked on Iron Giant, I'll give you a little nugget. On Iron Giant, Hogarth changed, a lot of them had different clothing changes. And I remember there's a process in animations called Sweatbox, and that's where the directors and all the leads come and they watch the animation and he approves it. And we were watching a piece of animation, and I said to the art director that Hogarth has the wrong shirt on. And so we had to bring it up, but the issue is this: he had the wrong shirt on. They just paid, $10,000 for 2 weeks of animation work that had to then get changed because he had the wrong shirt on. So that was the moment they went, we gotta figure out continuity in this. And so I was helpful with creating the continuity charts for them. But
wow.
Yeah.
And you won an award, right? A Producer's Guild Award?
I was up for Producer's Guild. I didn't win it, but Red versus Blue didn't win that year, but it was pretty prestigious for me to be up for it. And that was here in LA, and I got to, hang out and hobnob with all these. And it was one of the first time that streaming actually got into Producer Guild Award, because that's a whole nother thing, right? All of that's entering in now and being recognized as real stuff, real content.
Okay, so quick trivia. Can you tell us about some of the famous people you worked with when you were during your film days?
Wow. I had the honor working with Adam Sandler, Jennifer Gardner, and Judy Greer when they were on Men, Women, and Children. Oh, and Ansel Elgort, really nice. Super nice young man. Now I think he's in a lot of different things. I worked with a lot of the young kids won't need these people, like Charlton Heston back in the day, voiceover, Brad Garrett, Frank Welker, who does all voiceover. The Wayans brothers, worked on a project with them at Warner Brothers. So many, like a lot of people that I just kind of laugh. I have all my pictures of the people that I met throughout the years, and sometimes it's a little surreal. Oprah Winfrey, I get to meet, loved her.
And your 2 dogs. Tell us about your 2 dogs. They're Titan and
Bella. They're 2 Italian greyhounds. Yes. Titan is 10 pounds and 12 years old, and Bella is 20 pounds and 3 years old. And they are like my kids. And then my son, he's 30, and he just got engaged. So it's going to be exciting 2021.
Yes, it is. Kathy, this has just been wonderful. Santiago, any questions? Sarah, anything you want to ask?
I already asked all I wanted to. Let's wait for Sarah.
Okay.
Sarah's on mute. I don't know if she's good.
She's good. Okay. All right. Awesome.
We have a workshop with you, so we can't wait. We'll have more questions there. And Kathy, you just made my day. Thank you for joining us. And this is going to be this will be aired soon. So
awesome.
Until then, take
care. All right. My pleasure, guys. Thank you so much.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you guys. All
right. Thank you.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Be sure to subscribe to our channel and to turn on the notification bell for our latest videos.